The 27th of October, the media center Ukrinform is continuing its work. My name is Svetlana Cheparenko. We are today talking about the suicidal teenage cases and the causes of this. Today we are joined by Regina Popova, who is member of the Cyber Division of the National Psychological Association, and Oksana Pisareva, representing the Children's Charitable Foundation. The wave of the teenage suicides, we have seen 6 of those in the capital city of Kyiv over 1 month. What are the causes of this? The war, the beginning of the academic year, and perhaps there is a special campaign by the Russian Federation. What's your take on that? I think I would like to begin representing the Cyber Division. I have come here to say whether this is the result of the special operation. My personal answer is that no, this is not the cause. This is not caused by the network activities. I've been talking to representatives of the Lastrada, Ukraine. They have set up a hotline for teenagers and the young people. And their comment is that the suicidal behavior is explained by a number of cases when the teenagers are contacting the hotline. We have been receiving calls from young people who are part of the death groups. However, number of such calls have been decreased. More often than not, children feel that they are alone, and they seem to think that to get the attention by the older generation and parents is the suicidal avenue. Again, in the society, there is a point when people are provoked. Again, we've got the hotline 116-1117, but this wave of suicides are different. My personal view is that since 2019, we've come back to what is called a classical, normal educational process. Children are facing burdens and loads in terms of studying. They've been studying online. Now that they have come offline studying, there's a new wave of responses. The psychological matter here is very important. Let us also not forget about the sleep. The Ukrainian cities are under the attack of rockets or the constant air raid sirens. Children are affected by that. We have been thinking how to do away with such consequences. Let me also quote what I have found out while I was preparing for this interview. At the Children's Hospital, Mr. Shevchenko told me that the sleep, which has become abnormal, brings a lot of consequences. Psychological state causes a lot of responses for children, including suicidal, especially when the sleeping disruptions are caused by the air raid sirens. The first thing to think about is to see how children are sleeping. In Kyiv, we have set up a laboratory that is tracing the normal procedures of sleep. Another issue is food. You know, apart from chocolates and burgers, sometimes children think that they can be cheered up by having a chocolate. There's nothing bad about it. If it saves children's lives, it's a good thing. Thank you. If there is anything you would like to add, perhaps you might zero in on the state of the parents, which impacts the state of their children. All of us are here sitting on our edge, and I think it's important. I echo the panelists who had suggested it's not primarily caused by online informational space. We know for sure that this feeling of frustration It's, of course, sometimes caused by the online space. We don't know how to control the public space. We know about the cyber police. Some Telegram groups are disposed, but you can't really control 24/7 the contacts of your child, the chats that they are participating in. They might be hiding them. And I think that another thing that is frightening is this fear of the unknown. We should decrease the degree of teenagers' pressing situations. I absolutely agree that coming back to the offline studying and classes, but on the other hand, it's another matter when children have not come back to offline studying. On the one side, some kids have come back to the pre-war education studying, and they tend to compare what happened last year. All of us remember the way we lived here in Kiev last September or October. It has triggered what we see around us, and especially through the smells and everything. Children are reminded about the horror and despair that they found themselves a year ago. The background is very frustrating. And the teenagers seem to be in two situations. On the one hand, they are grown-ups. On the other hand, they're still kids. They don't know how to cope with this stress. If they are not supported by the parents or older people, they think that they are alone. They have failed to find their place in these lives, and then the suicide intentions. There are thoughts going around from the government bodies that are called to take care of the teenage suicide waves. They say that we should not be publicize such trend. We should keep silent about that. What's your take on that? I think it makes sense. If we put too much emphasis on these trends, the fear is the opposite of love. We know that. Once we feel the frustration and angst, we think that we require more love and care. Sometimes you're not supposed to be talking about love. You'd rather show that children are loved and they're loved by their parents. So I agree with that point. Do you see any risk in romanticization of suicide? We've seen kids throwing themselves from the high rises. It has some romantic feeling about it, doesn't it? You see, this is what is happening right now. The teenagers are experiencing what's going around them in a very high-intensity sphere, and romanticization is perhaps part of their lives, the first love, first romances, something that the kids have never felt before. And teenagers are in need to go through such experiences. You see, this is part of the archetype, this romance feeling. The Greek tragedy will give us a lot of examples of such romanticization. So we should be thinking and looking into the background online interests of the kids. This TV serial they're watching, kids are searching, groping for the realization of their needs. When talking about the news and the harrowing incidents of suicides, are parents supposed to be talking about them? Or parents should be talking about that, shall we say, in advance to prevent such inclinations? Indeed, it's a harrowing situation. Parents should not be imposing more frightening and an angst. I think parents are supposed to be giving more love. When kids say that I see that there are a lot of news about teenage suicides, and we should be open about that while we are having lunch with our children. It's a good thing when kids feel that he or she is supported. When parents say that, it's normal that some thoughts of that kind come to you. You see, children should discriminate between this feeling of loneliness and the desire to take their own lives. Children should be adapted to this world. They should know that every person enjoys this dual feeling of thinking that if you're unhappy or feel lonely, the only way to go is suicide. But, of course, there are psychologists and therapists that know how to advise children. There are basic values in our world. It's very voguish to talk about different shades of our feelings. There are 4 basic feelings. The rage. If children feel the rage, they should be able to express their rage. If a kid is happy, they should be able to express it. If children are happy, this is part of their hope for the future. These are 4 basic feelings of any teenager. And if they are able to discriminate between them, they will not be taken away by this frustration feeling. How do you help kids to know the difference between them? There are table games. There are other ways. I don't think that there is a prevailing culture of prevention of teenage suicides. This is what comes to my mind, off my head. We should be open with our kids. As a mother, I was asking my kid to picture, to paint some devil that is likely to be coming to you. And my kid was sharing with me his pictures about these devils, what they look like, and it was easy to talk about that. Another thing is not to exclude from that process ourselves as parents. It is good for parents to say, I am sad now, I'm angry now, and the children will understand that they are part of the family. They reflect the behavioral patterns of their parents. Children should not be taught exclusively. They should follow their parents' example. If parents are close to themselves, they don't tell their children what they feel like. Then when you ask your kid, what's your inner feeling now, you will get the response, I don't know, I'm not going to share that with you. This is what you teach your parents at home. If their experience at home is the closedness, but if they're open to say that I'm sad, I'm not happy, I'm frustrated, the more scope of their feelings they're able to express, the easier it is for us to come in handy and help them to cope with their frustrations. In fact, we sometimes, because of the environment, we might be losing this connecting lives, but there is a previous experience that we can go back to. Another important issue is how to track what are the red flags that you think that your kids are suicidal. You should be open with your kids. If children are able to communicate their wishes, if they're happy, they will say so. If they're unhappy, they don't feel that they're loved. You will feel it as parents. We parents always know what's going on with our children. We know their frights or their frustrations, the way they sleep, the way they eat. Sometimes we can say that there is something wrong, that kids are afraid of something. Unless there is such a situation, you should take them to the mental health specialist. You should not be taking on yourself the role of the mental health specialist. I think it makes sense to take your kid to one mental health specialist, to the another, to 5 or 6 of them. You see, it takes a specialist to improve the situation. As an example, I will go back to the natural process of a stemming of a flower, then flower brings in seeds, and it's normal when the flower dies away, it gives way to another birth. When we see that the child is in the crisis situation, we should take it as a normal process, not to be angry with them, not to pressure them, because there are traumatic experiences that our kids are going through. Now, I agree with that as well. And another important thing is to say to your kid, I trust you. When your kid says, I feel bad, the response would be, I believe you. In this way, you will support it. The kid will know that it is she or he is being taken care of. They will share with you the facts. Why is it that they feel bad? This spell of parents' love will give way to romanticization of suicidal intentions. These intentions should be talked about in a fair and open way, calling spade a spade. And you see, body language always tells you the way the kids feel. If they behave in a strange way, there is no spring in their walk. This language of body will tell you that there's something wrong with your kid. When you look at your kid, you say, it's my child. At the same time, it's not my child. Sometimes they would shut themselves in their rooms when the sleeping disorders, eating disorders are indicative of something wrong. Parents should be able to discern those patterns. Before our kids were able to speak, we knew by their body language, by their behavior. We knew whether there was something good or something wrong with the kid. I agree with what my colleague has said, that you should take your kids to the psychologist. Taking them to the specialist doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. It only means that there is something systemic that has been broken. It has to be fixed, and it doesn't take only parents to fix it. To reduce the risk of further suicides, how does this system should function, the relations between the state, the government, the school, the parents, in an ideal world? You see, I have some issues with this systemic point. When we have put together the logo, we have put it on the table and it sits there in a quiet state. It's wholesome, it's holy, it should not be lying around. It's a very difficult issue, but it's good that if something has been torn apart, to put it together is a good thing. Children should see the examples of how things are getting destroyed, then rebuilt. When you have to tell that there is a space for yourselves to be angry, to be unhappy, but it also opens the way for a new lease of life. The world is changing around us, so we should be responding through the changed ways. Children should know that there are some frustrations, but that should not lead to the death desire. We should change and adapt our mind and brains to a new situation. We should propagate the idea that it is good to be overwhelmed by different feelings, that there are many spheres of emotional lives where kids can talk and express their feelings while they're going in for sports, or they're part of the literary clubs. Children should be able to choose from different activities. Again, as for the society in general, I've got a lot of issues as far as the teaching load in today's school. You see, we are relocated persons, myself and my kids, and I know that coming from Horlivka in Donetsk region, when we came here to Kiev, I saw the difference between other children and my kid. The overload doesn't have to be there. I don't like when the kids sit and burn midnight oil and in getting prepared for the next class. Children should be happy. When they are happy, they will be able to cope with their educational load. They should be enjoying their lives in the first place. This is what the culture should be, not the culture of unhappy people. Because, you know, we are saying that we are in a war, we are unhappy by definition. No, our children should know that we are fighting for the happy future of all of us. Children should be enjoying this happy life. I don't think there is anything to be added here. We have described the situation in an exhaustive manner, the relations between the community, government, the school, and educational system. Children should be enjoying the choice. They should have a right and think and know that they're eligible for choice. In their answer, who I am, what is my place in this lives? When children understand that this world is worth living, this life will be happy. I have failed this time, but I will be successful next time. Now, of course, children should be looking up to the authorities. Of course, children are looking for something to look at the basis in their lives. It's good that they go in for sport, they go to musical school, they go to painting clubs or theater, but not all children are having such choices. Otherwise, we should be mindful of the information space. Children should be very selective in their choice of cultures in TikTok, on the platforms online. And this is where we should be thinking about the educational system, extra school activities. We should be thinking of what do we offer to our children, what should be looked up as an authority by our kids. I agree that if children find a way to whole full lives, if people and children are happy, they will not be suicidal. And if they think that they are unhappy, that there is no place for them in this world, they will feel suicidal. But we should be preventing such feelings. I'm thinking about the school for the responsible parenthood. Children should be looking up to their parents, and parents have been victimized by the Soviet system. When we say to our kids that this has been the home assignment, you should learn it from A to Z. You see, there are traditional values in other countries. Take Japan, for example. There is a very high suicidal rate there. If we are like that, we will be facing such a reality. If we desire another life, a better life, if we desire a better future for our children, we should give them the possibility of self-realization, self-implementation. If kids know that there is security around them, they feel that they belong to this world, they should know that the world is a complex thing. And if they have the desire for self-implementation, they sometimes think there is something wrong with me, I should die just to take another way to go. Children should have authority to look up to. As for the parents, of course, there is a place for a government structures. There should be a public awareness campaign for a healthy way of life. But the campaign awareness for a healthy way of life is a good thing. The government should take upon itself a commitment to produce a awareness program for propagating a culture that is healthy, that is sports-oriented. I think it'll take a couple of years' work to overcome the consequences of this trauma and bring up a new, happy new generation. It's only a matter of will. I would also add here that perhaps it would be a good thing to have a school for responsible parenthood, but indeed, we can talk about the way that we have been brought up in the Soviet system, and that's the end of the story. We are helpless here, and there is a self-justification in that. But I think it's also a matter of choice. We have chosen to be that way. There are other examples, there are other strategies that seem to be working and efficient. At least I have my loyalty, my DNA loyalty to my kid, which means that I feel my kid. It means that I can find a way to understand my kid and a way for my kid to understand me at the DNA level. That means the natural communication interface between me and my kid. It's natural. It comes from nature. Thank you very much. I would like to give the opportunity for the journalists to put the questions. If there are questions from the floor, you're welcome. NHK, you've mentioned the war and the ongoing role. Do you have data on the impact of war on the statistics of suicide amongst teenagers, whether children have been exposed to traumas, they have seen how people died? Perhaps this might be impacting the inclinations of children to take their own lives. Do you have a statistics on that? Unfortunately, I don't have such data, but there are examples to that effect. This is a complex category of people. It is very difficult for children to find a basis to overcome such a crisis when they have been exposed to such experiences. It's not always the work with the mental specialists, because children are in stressful situations. You see, I'm trying to find the words. The suicide amongst teenagers is not new, but the teenage suicidal trends amidst the war is something new for the Ukrainian society. We are now searching for the ways. We are searching for the ways to say children that there is something worth living. When a kid says, I have lost my parents, I have lost my classmates, I have lost my school, how do you take that back to life? How does that kid feel any desire come back to life? We are working on this. The only thing I can share with you is this: the natural desire that is subconscious. It's there within us. We should show kids that there are reasons to live, in spite of all the distresses and all the situations. You've seen a lot of bad things, but there are a lot of good things around. We should restore that feelings and love for living. Yes, there have been some disruptions, but we should renew the connection between good times and bad times. There are things that will make your life better. What can we do? How can we create something new? Some kind of transformation is something we are coming to. But again, I underscore that this worldview is just being formed. This is something new that we have confronted. Since the full-scale invasion in our foundation, our room, we've been helping people a lot. and we saw how government was doing in a very efficient way. I can witness that I personally was looking for children, for teenagers that were in need of help, and I couldn't find them. They have been evacuated either to the USA, to Europe, to other countries. They have been given medical help, including prosthesis. I had received information from Ministry of Health. It was not on a mass scale. And indeed, if there are children that have come through such distressing experiences, we are not, showing a lot of the information that there are bad things. But when people were raped in the Bucha region, they were psychologically helped. Government did its best and did it on a very high level. My personal take is this. My experience comes back to 2014. There have been people who have failed to cope with their situation. They might be exposed to such experiences, but there is another category, people who are hopeful. They know that their victory will be coming our ways. These people have been enjoying the second lease of life. This is a unique situation when people lost everything, but they have lived through lives, through their lifespan. This is a form of eternal life. You have lost one life, but you have experienced a new life. These are people who have not been broken since 2014. They have been transformed, and they have shown the best examples of resilience and self-help and help to others. And I think they have shown the following: if this life hasn't killed us, nothing will kill us. Regina, you mentioned that some kids have been relocated abroad. Do you think that this is a good thing? You see, children have been traumatized by a number of experiences. They have lost their country. Do you think that the fact that they have been taken abroad is the best way for them? You see, I have not been talking to kids like that. They have been taken to hospitals abroad, but I know my acquaintances that they have come to other countries, and everyone knows how people live, and children live in Switzerland, in Italy, in Poland, and I see a lot of examples of Ukrainians adapting to new lives. This year has been a year for kids to adapt. If they're 6 or 10 years old, we don't know whether they will be coming back. But I think it's all individually received in very specific ways in specific countries. Do we have other questions?
Інформ, я теж знову ж таки по слідам вашого коментаря стосовно того, що дітей, які конкретно так постраждали, які були вивезені там з території.
Reference to the children who were traumatized. You mentioned that government did its best, but in your opinion, how accessible is mental health specialists? I see very often on the network people are writing, help us to find a mental health specialist. My kid has closed in herself or herself. There are changes in the behavior of my kid. I need some psychological help. Perhaps it doesn't take a kid taking to a specialist, but parents have some misgivings, some thoughts that they see children have been studying bad. There is something strange in their behavior. They have isolated themselves from the family, from their friends, and parents are searching for the specialist. You see, sometimes people fail to identify such mental health specialists. If in the current situation, what will be the way out?
Точно визначить спеціаліст. Якщо в мами
Currently, I think, if parents or grandparents see something distressing or raising their awareness, this is not an ordinary situation. You should start perhaps with visiting our website. There is a bot chat that you can feed in your request and you will be contacted by the specialists. In almost all the Ukrainian cities we have local branches. You can visit the branch by yourselves and you will be able to talk to specialists. My request for the parents is this: don't decide by yourself that this has not reached a critical stage. It takes one consultation. You will take to a specialist. A mental health specialist will talk to your kid. They will have some good time, have some fun. They will have some games. That will be enough for some kids. And perhaps it will take a longer process. It should be decided by the specialist. If there's something wrong, you think, it's good to take your kid to a mental health specialist. Indeed, there are a lot of places to go to. But you should perhaps start with our website. We have also hotline that you can call or leave a request on that hotline. Let me add that the National Psychological Association has our own website. We have the hotline. We have got very good specialists. There's a register of the specialists, and you can choose on your own what kind of person you want to talk to. In our association, the work has been done very efficiently, and there will be people who will be able and willing to respond to your concerns. As for the support of the parents, I like the community of the processed working of Ukraine, where there are a lot of events that they can afford for you. This is all done free of charge. But if the situation comes to bad situation, if you don't know what to do, if a kid says that I don't want anything, hotline is at your service, 116-117. Welcome. My name is Kujisabe. I'm representing Japanese company NHA.
Very important topics in Ukraine. It was really impressed me. And I have some questions about today's topics. That maybe the best way to change this situation is to finish the war. But still, Russian full-scale invasion still continuing. So it's very difficult. So how do you think about how parents should keep on mind to take care of their children in difficult times, because not all Ukrainian people can evacuate other country. And we met many people from Ukraine in Poland, for example. They are also very difficult situation, because anyway, children have to move to other country and learn Polish language, for example. So very difficult for them. That experience is not always good for children. So maybe many people have to keep staying inside of Ukraine. So please tell me how parents should prepare for taking care of their children in this difficult situation. Because even for Japanese, I spent here only 1 month. Then after returning to Japan, when I heard the sounds of closing doors, I remember the Russian bombing in Kiev. So even for adult and even for foreign country people, it is very, very scared and very terrible experiences. So for children, maybe it's very, very shock. So how parents should take care of them children? I would like to ask your opinion. Thank you. Дякую.
Давайте тоді я розпочну. Я думаю,
I think, for the starters, we imagine what parents are. it's a big ship that smaller boats are going in its wake. And what are these constructions made of? Daily rituals. There must be a structure of a day that children are aware of. There we know that we get up, we have our breakfast, we go to school, we have some free time after school. This seems to be very simple, very routine. Even after we have changed our place of living, children should know that there is some stability. Some things are here, lying here on the table. There are things that are always lying here or there. Children must know that there is some stability in their lives. We should be talking to our children openly. For example, when the rockets are flying to our cities and there are air raid sirens going on, children should know from their parents that they should stay calm. We know statistics that children are afraid to go to bed while the air raid is announced. Children are afraid of them. That's natural. But parents should tell them very precisely what to do. When the air raid is announced, I will get you out from bed. We will take your cover. We will take your pillow. We will take your toys. All the gadgets have been charged. Telephones are working. These are simple things, but they are of ritual, structural nature. They should be done every day, and children should also be aware that there is a short-term planning for a day, for a week. For example, next week we are going to the theater. Tomorrow we'll be making cookies. But every day at this point in time we are having breakfast. This is a routine that fills the children with the feeling of security space. Home is their security space. Next to them, there are people who are in charge of the situation, and they will always help you. I would like to add here that I think such instructions, such checklists are very important. But apart from that, it's not important what we say. What is important is the way we talk to our children. Sometimes the amount of time that we spend with our children, it all comes down to quality communicating. If we are able to share 3 minutes of happy interaction with our kids, this is the basis. If we can't do that, parents should be doing something with themselves. You should not be tedious. You should present the feeling of happy life, a feeling of being loved, of some normality to your kid. And another thing, for those who have been relocated, indeed, life takes a different stance. People are hiring places, they live in the dormitories for quite some time. It's important to take your children to some other environment, to their friends, perhaps go to the mountains for some time. But kids should be given an opportunity to breathe nature, not to get stuck in this horrible environment. Another thing is that once we feel as parents that we don't cope, we might arrange for our kids to go to some other families where we can have some rest for ourselves, just to renew our strength. And in the same way, for kids to have some new experiences. If children stay with their friends or with other relatives, I think it's a good thing for children. Thank you for our guests. This has been very important and helpful. If there are no more questions, we will be wrapping up. Let me remind you that within this Ukraine Media Center Hub, we've been talking about suicidal trends among teenagers. We will resume our work on Monday. Keep track of our announcements, and thank you for staying with us.